Hi everyone and welcome back. The subject is business data analytics. Today we are going to study the tools for data analytics, and we will restrict our study to three areas. That is data cleaning tools, data management, and data visualization. There are three areas where you are required to study under the subtopic tools for data analytics. I repeat, number one, data cleaning tools, number two, data management, and number three, data visualization. Today we'll focus on data cleaning. Data cleaning. And before we consider the tools in data cleaning, we will first define data cleaning. Data cleaning. What is data cleaning? Data cleaning, also referred to as data cleansing, is also referred to as data cleansing, is the process of identifying and correcting errors, inconsistencies, and inaccuracies in raw data. And the purpose is to improve its quality and usability for analysis. So it is the process of removing, one, removing errors. It may also involve doing away with inconsistencies. Sometimes it could be dealing with the missing figures, missing information. Where data is not complete, there could be a process of completing it. That still falls under data cleaning. It may also involve doing away with inaccuracies. So data cleaning is the process of identifying and correcting errors, inconsistencies, inaccuracies in raw data. And the objective of doing all this is to improve the quality and usability of data. Okay? And candidates, this is an essential step in data pre-processing. It is an essential step in data pre-processing. Before data is processed, pre means prior. Before data is processed, then it's important to have it cleaned. All right? It is a very important, essential step in data pre-processing, which involves transforming the raw data into a clean, structured format that is suitable for analysis. And candidates, in data cleaning, there are various steps. There are various steps when it comes to cleaning data. And one step is data auditing. Data auditing. Data auditing. What is data auditing? Data auditing, candidates, is one of the important steps in data cleaning, which involves reviewing the data for completeness. Reviewing the data for accuracy, reviewing the data for consistency, and identifying any missing or any duplicate or invalid data. So when auditing data, candidates, I repeat, then the processes that take place involve checking data for completeness. Is the data complete? Does the data have all the required components? Is it complete? Or are there any missing values? Identifying, it may involve identifying missing information. Identifying missing information. It may also involve checking out if there are any duplicates. You may have data that is duplicated. You may have data even in triplicate. So in auditing, then that is what happens. You check if the data is in duplicate, if the data is repeated, if the data is in triplicate, and ensuring that data is also valid. You check also for invalid data. That's data auditing. Then there is data cleaning. Cleaning data. Cleaning data, candidates, involves correcting errors. It may involve removing duplicates. Of course, here remember it is identifying if there is any duplicate, identifying if the data is incomplete, identifying if the data is invalid. Then the second step is to remove the duplicates, all right, to fill in the missing values. That is now cleaning. When you clean, you fill in the missing values, you remove the duplicated files, and you may do this using various techniques, all right, such as interpolation, such as interpolation. You may use techniques like the one we call imputation and so on. Cleaning data. Then step number 3 is data transformation. Data transformation. Now, data transformation involves converting data into suitable format for analysis, such as normalizing, standardizing, and also encoding, and so on. Encoding of categorical variables and so on. So data transformation is converting the data into format that is required or that is good for analysis. Data transformation. Then lastly, you do what we call data verification. Data verification is yet another step in data cleaning. Data verification involves checking the clean data and the transformed data to ensure that it meets the desired quality standards and suitable for analysis. So data here is cleaned, then data is transformed. Then the last step, you check, you verify if the data that has been cleaned and the data that has been transformed meets the standards that are required for analysis. You verify. Because every organization has a standard. Every organization needs to have a desired quality standards for data before the data is analyzed. So when data is collected, it is cleaned, it is transformed, then the data that is cleaned and transformed should be verified by checking that data against the standard, against the desired quality standards. And the purpose is to check if such data is suitable for analysis. So candidates, the objective, the purpose, the aim of cleaning data, candidates, the aim, the purpose of cleaning data, the goal of cleaning data is to ensure that the data used for analysis is accurate, number 1, is reliable, number 2, is consistent, which helps to reduce the risk of errors and biases in the results. And it is iterative, that the process It is an iterative process. Candidates, it is an iterative process that may require multiple rounds of cleaning and verification to achieve the desired level of data quality. That means after carrying out the first round of auditing, of cleaning, of transformation and verification, that data that is verified at the end here may not be the one, may not be meeting the desired quality standard. And therefore, such data may be subjected to the same process again until the data achieves the desired level of quality. So that's the meaning of data cleaning. And finally, I've said the goal of data cleaning is to ensure that data that is used for analysis is accurate, is reliable, and is also consistent, which helps to reduce the risk of errors and biases in the results. Because we know, candidates, the principle garbage in, garbage out. If you have inputting data in a system that has errors, that has inconsistencies, that has missing information, that has inaccuracies, and such data may not give the right or the intended results. That's why it has to be subjected to the cleaning process, the data cleaning process. And that takes us to the next question. What are the tools for cleaning data? The data cleaning tools. Data cleaning tools. We are now going to study the data cleaning tools. Data cleaning tools. Data cleaning tools. Data cleaning tools. There are many tools that may be used in cleaning data. There are many tools. The syllabus allows us to look at, the syllabus mentions 3. One is Alteryx. The other one is SSIS. Then there is the data stage. These are the tools mentioned in the business data analytics subject: Alteryx, SIS, and the data stage. Now let's begin with the Alteryx tool. Now Alteryx, candidates, is a software company that deals or provides a platform for data preparation, blending, and analysis. The company has a platform that is designed to help users prepare and analyze data using what we call a drag and drop interface. Drag and drop interface. The drag and what? The drag and drop interface without requiring any coding. So this platform, the Alteryx platform, allows users to connect to various data sources, including databases, cloud applications, and spreadsheets. So users can then use Alteryx drag and drop interface to transform and clean data. They can also use it to join multiple databases or data sets and then create analytical models. This platform, candidates, also offers a range of analytical tools. It offers predictive modeling capabilities that enable users to create complex analytical workflows. The tool or the platform can also be used to build predictive models and also perform data mining tasks. So generally, candidates, the Alteryx platform, I can say, is designed to make it easier for non-technical users to work with data and perform sophisticated data analysis tasks without requiring significant programming skills. So this is one of the data cleaning tools available, especially to those who are not well conversant with programming skills. It uses a drag and drop interface, and you've seen it performs various tasks other than just data cleaning tasks. This can be used to offer analytical tools. It can offer predictive modeling capabilities so that users can create complex analytical workflows and so on. Alteryx. Then there is the SSIS. Now the C's stands, this first S stands for SQL, which means structured query language. The second S stands for server. I stands for integration, and S, services. So this is the SQL Server Integration Services. It is a data integration tool that is developed by Microsoft. This one is developed by Microsoft, and it is a component of the Microsoft SQL Server database software that is used to perform a wide range of data integration tasks. All right? Including data extraction, transformation, loading, and so on. So with the C's, users can create packages that can extract data from a variety of sources. They can transform the data to meet specific requirements and then load the data into a target destination. It's a very important tool that supports various data sources, including the SQL Server, the Oracle. It can support Excel, the flat files, and much more. There's a lot we can say about C's, like the fact that it includes graphical user interface that allows users to design and manage what we call the ETL. The ETL, which is used in loading. All right? And candidates, I can say it is also very useful in data warehousing and business intelligence applications, where data must be integrated from multiple sources into a single data warehouse or a data mart. Integration. That's why you see here it may be very important when it comes to, say, transformation of data. Data transformation. After data is cleaned, then the C's can be used to transform the data. It has the capacity of transforming data. It has the capacity of offering a wide range of services or operations that can be essential in data cleaning. It can be used to migrate projects. It can be used in data migration projects where the data needs to be transferred from one system to the other in the process of cleaning data. Because remember here we said that data cleaning involves identifying missing information or inaccuracies. So the C's can be used to get information from various sources of databases to integrate or to clean data to fit in the missing information or figures or inaccuracies in the raw data. That is the SEAS, which is a Microsoft tool developed by Microsoft. I've said it stands for SQL Server Integration Service. Then lastly, we can discuss the data stage. The data stage is developed by the IBM company. It's an IBM company tool, which is an ETL tool. This is an ETL tool. It is an ETL tool. That means extract, transform, and load. Extract, transform, load tool developed by IBM. It's used for data integration and transformation. It's used for data transformation. You recall the fourth stage in data cleaning is transformation. So when transforming data, this software can be used in doing that. Integration and transformation of large volumes of data. And that it does from various sources. All right? The data stage software can extract, it can transform, and then load data from different databases, from different sources, and then target the information into a certain source. Like say a data warehouse or a data mart. So the data stage provides a graphical interface for designing and running ETL jobs, which consist of a series of stages that extract data from sources, transform it into needed, and then load it into the target system. Do you understand, candidates? This is a software that can extract. ETL means extract. Can extract data, can mine data from different sources. Then transform it as needed, and then load it into a target system like a warehouse, data warehouse. And candidates, the data stage tool is capable of handling complex data integration scenarios. And it can handle various types of data, including structured data, semi-structured data, and structured data, and so on. And just like the SEAS software, the data stage tool can support a wide range of data sources, such as databases, mainframes, flat files, and so on. So that's what we can say about data stage. There are many other functions that this software can perform, like job designs, the metadata management, the data profiling. It can also do parallel processing. It can carry out jobs like scheduling, job scheduling, and it has inbuilt transformation stages, all right, like filtering, the lookup, the aggregator. It can support custom transformation as well, and many more functions. And in conclusion, candidates, as far as data stage is concerned, I can say the data stage is a powerful tool for managing complexities of data integration and transformation. It can transform data, large volumes of data, into valuable insights for business. So that's all for today, where we've studied data cleaning, which we said is also known as data cleansing. We've defined data cleaning. We've identified or described the steps in data cleaning, which involve data auditing, data cleaning, data transformation, and data verification. Then we've highlighted 3 data cleaning tools. The Alteryx, which is a tool that is developed by a company, Alteryx. There is the SEAS tool, which is developed by Microsoft. Then there is DataStage, developed by IBM. Thank you for attending today's lesson. But before we close the lesson, I need to refer you to the December 2022 paper, Business Data Analytics. There's a paper tested on data cleaning. That is question number 19. And the question tested on this Alteryx. Alteryx is an example of A, data management tool, B, data cleaning tool, C, data visualization tool, D, data presentation. So thank you for your patience. I'll hope to meet you in our next session, where we continue to study tools for data analytics. Today we focused on data cleaning. In our next session, we study data management. Then we'll move on to data visualization. Thank you. Bye-bye. Welcome to the lesson. In today's class, we will discuss the subtopic communicating in virtual groups. Communicating in virtual groups and team groups. And under this lesson, we are going to consider 3 groups. That is the group's email, number 1. Number 2, the WhatsApp groups and social media. 3 things: group emails, WhatsApp groups, and social media. But first of all, let us define virtual communication. What is virtual communication? Virtual communication. Now, virtual communication, candidates, is defined as a mode of communication that includes the use of technology like video or audio to communicate with people who are not physically present. Now, when you communicate with someone through the use of technology someone who is not with you, then we say that is virtual communication. Like what I'm doing today. I'm talking to you, you are not in this room, yet you can hear me. I can talk to you. You can hear what I'm saying, you can understand what I'm saying, you can write what I'm writing, you can do the assignments I'm giving. That is virtual communication. It's a mode of communication that includes the use of technology. So when you talk of virtual communication, there has to be an element of technology, either audio or video, to communicate with people who are not physically present. You can communicate to a person virtually in the next room, or it could be the next floor, it could be in the neighborhood, or you can communicate with someone virtually miles away. And candidates, today, virtual communication has been very common in almost every area of work. People communicate virtually within the family, between friends. We also have people communicating in the office, virtually, just to name a few areas. And those of you who witnessed the outbreak of the coronavirus or corona pandemic, you must have realized that during the pandemic, face-to-face business was reduced. and people opted for virtual communication tools. Students studied from home. Businesses were run from homes. People bought goods and services online because of the pandemic, coronavirus pandemic, virtual communication. Now, the syllabus allows us to study 3 areas under virtual communication. One is group emails. Group emails. Now group emails is a collection of email accounts to which you can send emails. And when a group owner sends an email to an email group, then all the email contacts in that group label will receive the same email. I can decide to form an email, a group email, so that I have contacts within that group. Could say, let me say, an accounts department. The head of the accounts department can have a contact of all the members within that department. Could be 50 or 100. So that when this finance director sends the email to the group, then all the members in the group of the accounting department will receive the same email instantly. That's what we refer to as group email. So creating groups in email, for example, in Gmail, is one of the quickest ways to send multiple mails. Instead of sending an email to each person at a time, you can create a contact group, then you send emails to the group. Instead of manually adding multiple recipients, using group emails becomes easier to send mails. Group email. So what are the advantages? What are the advantages of having a group email? What are the advantages? Let me put down the advantages. Advantages of group emails. Advantages of group emails. Advantage number 1 is that one of tracking capabilities. Because candidates, a group email list service can help out with the deliverability of messages. And it's possible to track what's being delivered and what is not being delivered. So that if there is any things that are not being delivered, the group administrators can be informed. All right? Tracking capabilities. Group emails are what we call tracking capabilities. This is 1. Then 2, single point of contact. Single point of contact. Now, for everyone outside a company or a group, it might be tricky to find the best angle to contact such a person. But driving emails towards a group inbox can make it easier to stay on top of things, and also for people trying to reach out could be easier or more effective, and it makes it possible to ensure conversations are always directed towards the best possible person inside of the company. So that's an advantage, single point of contact. Then there is also the advantage of transparency. transparency of or transparency among the group. Group emails promote transparency among the group. Group emails promote transparency among the group. How does that happen? Candidates, group email promotes transparency. These are a great benefit of group email. It promotes transparency. Because if you are sending emails or sharing emails, then all the information that you have will be available to anyone on the list, and thereby avoiding the frustration that can come from lack of visibility. Because when you send one email, the email hits all the members on the group list. So there is transparency, so that again no one says that I received a different email, I received a wrong email, the information was all the same. There is always transparency because all members receive the same message at the same time. And transparency is also enhanced, especially when there is a new member who is introduced to the group. And maybe the new member needs to get up to speed with what has been happening. Becomes easier if such a member is enlisted or included in the list of members in the group. Transparency among the group members is enhanced or promoted. Another advantage is that of management, easy to manage. It is easy to manage group emails. Now, a good group email provider, a good one, a good email list, for example, will also allow members to sign up directly to the list via the website. And a dedicated link can then be distributed to a wide group of people who can decide to join the group or not. And that becomes very easy to manage the group. So these are some of the advantages of group emails. Let's now have a look at the limitations. What are the limitations of group emails? The first obvious limitation is viruses. Viruses. Virus. Viruses. 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 Now, candidates, email is one of the commonest ways for viruses to travel and infect devices. Why? Because the email might come with a virus, or the virus might be in an attached document. And infection normally occurs when the recipient clicks a link or opens the infected attachment. And candidates' infected emails may come from an anonymous source or appear to come from a trusted friend or a contact. So that's one of the limitations of group emails, viruses. Time consuming. The second limitation, time consuming. Why? Now, reading, writing, responding to emails can take up a vast amount of time as well as energy. And many modern workers spend most, if not all their days, just dealing with emails. if you have a large amount of emails to respond to, you find that you may spend a lot of time reading emails, understanding the emails, responding to emails, and so on. And that work can be dull, and sometimes it feels like there is a few tangible benefits. It can be boring to just spend the whole time responding to emails. It's time-consuming, can be tedious, and so on. The third limitation, group emails are insecure. Insecure. Now, emails are a common target for hackers who may seek sensitive information, such as the financial information, personal messages, and confidential documents. And there have been many high-profile cases that show how vulnerable emails are, okay, to data theft. So it's also the case that so many emails could fly around a lot in large organizations that it can be difficult to know who has what information and so on. So there is that risk of insecurity. Malicious use is another limitation. Malicious use, from the word malice. Emails, candidates can be sent anonymously, which means that they are sometimes used maliciously, either to bully or to upset people. Likewise, they can be used to spread gossip or even false information in a business. 5, misunderstanding. That's another limitation of group emails, misunderstandings. It is easy, candidates, for misunderstanding to occur with email. Why? Because there could be only text and no tone of voice or even body language to provide the context. And that's why sometimes when using emails, jokes can be taken seriously. And a well-meaning but quickly typed email can come across as rude or even aggressive. So the email, due to the shortcoming of the fact that emails, you cannot hear the tone of the one communicating, you cannot read the body language. Short descriptions and abbreviations also can easily be misinterpreted. So that is, there are high chances that emails can be misunderstood because of the fact that you don't see the one communicating, you don't hear the voice, it's just text. And sometimes text can cause misunderstandings. Then lastly, another disadvantage of emails is information overload. Information overload. Now, candidates, in part, because emails are so easy to send to multiple people, especially in group emails, they can create information overload. And that is a huge problem in modern workplaces, where there is a lot of information moving around. And it's impossible to tell if an email is important or relevant or not. Emails require constant organization and upkeep. But in the modern workplace, that may not be the case. So there may be information overload because of the fact that an email can easily be sent. Then you may have very many emails, information that is not organized, and information that is not updated, and so on. So these are some of the limitations of group emails, 6 of them. So candidates, we have discussed group emails. Remember I told you that under virtual communication, we are discussing group emails. We also discuss WhatsApp groups, number 2. WhatsApp groups. Now, WhatsApp groups, candidates, WhatsApp is a free messaging application that uses the internet to send messages, images, audios, and videos. When I say free, I mean you don't have to buy the application. You can download it freely. As long as you have internet, you can download it freely. As long as you have internet, you can send messages. As long as you have internet, you can send images, you can send videos, you can send audios, and so on. That service, the WhatsApp service, is similar to the text messaging services. Text messaging, the one we text on the phone, text messaging. However, because WhatsApp uses the internet to send messages, and the cost of using WhatsApp is significantly less compared to sending messages, compared to texting. It should be noted that you can also use WhatsApp on a desktop. You can use it on mobile phones and so on. And WhatsApp has become a popular mobile messaging application which dominates today's mobile communication. And that's why it has found its way in your syllabus. You see, we are discussing WhatsApp in your syllabus. Why? Because it has become a popular mobile messaging application which has dominated today's mobile communication. Almost everyone is on WhatsApp. As long as you have a phone, you are likely to install the application for communication. Especially, we have the feature of group chats, because we are discussing groups, virtual groups. There is that feature on group chats. Can form a group, can come together as a group, and you chat as a group on WhatsApp. The feature of group chats contributes to its success, and it has changed the way people communicate. WhatsApp is very simple to start because, number one, I said it's just free. You download it. It's not complex. No complex registration is required. And the application automatically identifies users by their phone numbers. And those contacts saved on the smartphone that are also users on WhatsApp will automatically be added to the application's contact list. It combines one-to-one, one-to-many, and group communication. That means I can communicate with you one-on-one. I can communicate in a group. All right? So those are some of the features. You can have group communication by offering private chats, broadcasts, group chats, and so on. And candidate, to start a new group, one has just to open the menu on WhatsApp and choose new group. Then the subject of the group, which is just a free text, can be used to define the group and even the group icon. You can upload an icon for the group. Then afterwards, you can add contacts to the group. You can invite people, send people a link to join the group. And the one who creates the group, the creator of the group, has administrative privileges on WhatsApp. You can add members in the group, you can remove members from the group at any time, and also can promote other group members to become administrators. So candidates, we are talking about sharing on WhatsApp. And when you share or when you send a post, where each post of a member of the group is represented, can be represented by a speech bubble. Okay, bubble, speech bubble. And apart from the exchange of text messages, WhatsApp allows the members to send photos, to send videos, to send audio files, to send contact data, as well as even the current location of the user. It's possible to know the current location of the user. So what I've been describing, candidates, is not something that's not new to you if you have a smartphone and you are on WhatsApp. Those are some of the features that we find on WhatsApp. WhatsApp application. WhatsApp. Are you on WhatsApp? Most likely, most likely, most likely. All right? WhatsApp is very common, very popular, a way of communicating informally. Businesses have also embraced WhatsApp, especially when it comes to forming of groups. We have, if it's a department, you may have all the department members forming a group so that they can share information. They can share videos, they can share audios for the work. And in WhatsApp, candidates, in a conversation, every type of message is seamlessly integrated into a single view, such that every user of WhatsApp will be notified as soon as a new post arrives, whether it is in a group or in a private chat. And the notification can be a sound, it can be an icon, or even a pop-up window. And it's important to note that WhatsApp group has a limit. If you are forming a group, WhatsApp may have a limit number of people whom you can add to the group. The common WhatsApp group, you add at most 250 people in a single group or chat. So one can create a WhatsApp group for clients. You can create another WhatsApp group for the department. You can create a WhatsApp group for a committee. A WhatsApp group can be created for employees in different departments, and so on. You can have WhatsApp group for the marketing campaign team. If there is a campaign team going out, you can have a WhatsApp group such that the members can post messages, they can post clips, photos, audios on the group's wall for other group members to see or to view. And that can be done anytime. People can view it anytime. People can send information on the WhatsApp wall anytime. And the admin of the group, the administrator of the group, is the one who is responsible for controlling the chatting in the group. So that is the second virtual group. The first virtual group we discuss is the Gmail. The second one is WhatsApp group. Then we can, in closing, talk about the social media. There are groups that can also be formed on social media. Now, candidly, social media is a computer-based technology that facilitates the sharing of ideas, thoughts, and information through the building of virtual networks and communities. All right? And the largest social media networks today, as I'm speaking, include the Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, TikTok, and many others. All right? So social media typically features user-generated content and personalized profiles. And candidate social media is any digital tool that allows users to quickly create and share content with the public. That's social media. It does what? Social media is a digital tool that does what? That allows users to do what? To quickly create and share content with the public. And social media encompasses a wide range of websites, a wide range of applications, some like Twitter, specializing in sharing links and short written messages, others like Instagram and TikTok, which are built to optimize the sharing of photos and videos. You may have a TikTok and so on. You have LinkedIn and so on. So anyone with internet access can sign up on a social media account. They can use that account to share whatever content they choose to, and the content they share reaches anyone who visits their page or profile or their group. Social media is a digital tool. Is a digital tool that allows what? Allows the users to create content and share it to the public. Social media. All right? Social media. All right? So I've mentioned the social media accounts, the Facebook, we have even blogs. Blogs is also another platform. Is a platform for, blogs is just a platform for casual dialogue and discussions on special topics or opinions. Facebook, today as I'm speaking, is the largest social media network with billions of active users. The users create personal profile on Facebook. They add other users as friends. They exchange messages on Facebook, including status updates. We've seen also brands creating pages, and Facebook users can like brands' pages and so on. On Facebook, again, you can have a Facebook group, which may more or less work just like a WhatsApp group, where members can of the group have certain privileges, and the group is controlled and managed by an administrator. Okay? We've had other platforms like LinkedIn. LinkedIn is a place where groups of professionals with similar areas of interest can share information and participate in conversations. So all these are media platforms that companies can use. They have certain features that may be of help to a company, especially when it comes to communicating in virtual groups. Do you understand? Yes, you do. Are you on Facebook? You may not be on Facebook, or you are on Facebook. So I advise you, if you are not in some of these social media platforms, make an effort of at least visiting the social media platforms and see how they operate, so that you can also be in a position to verify what I'm telling you right now, all right? Just for the sake of knowledge, it's important for you to make an effort and see what are the features of some of these social media platforms. Like we have YouTube, we have Vimeo, there is Flickr, and so on. Platforms, candidates like YouTube, they do what we call video hosting. It's a video hosting and watching website. All right, we have platform like Instagram. We have free and video sharing. Is a free and video sharing app that allows users to apply digital filters, frames, and other special effects to their photos. And then they can share them to variety of social networking sites. Now, as we close, let us take some time and discuss the benefits of virtual communication. Benefits of virtual communication. I said as we began that virtual communication is just communicating to people who are not present with you physically. When you communicate with someone who is not with you physically using technology, then that is virtual communication. The first benefit of virtual communication is that one of convenience. Convenience. People or employees can interact with each other from wherever they are, virtually. They do not have to meet in person. And that reduces frustration, especially when people are busy or are caught up in traffic or they are busy elsewhere. You can communicate without necessarily traveling to meet. Convenience. Time saving. Time what? Saving. There is no need for a physical meeting to communicate. When you are communicating virtually, there is no need to do what? To have a physical meeting, and that saves time. You can use different virtual communication software which can allow you to pass across whatever information that you may have from wherever you are, and that eventually saves time. Benefit number 3, saves money. Saves money. That's another common advantage of virtual communication. Is an advantage, saving money, cutting costs. Why? Because you are able to reduce transport expenses, and companies cut on operational costs of employees, thereby saving money to be used on other functions. I know companies that allowed employees to work from home, and that you cut costs because you don't need to have a lot of space in the office, because employees can work from their they can work from their homes. So you cut costs in terms of the traveling expenses and even the rent and so on. 4, speed. Speed. Or you can say it's fast. Speed. Virtual communication takes no time to connect with the other person. It's just a click away, and you get to convey what you want to communicate. A click. For example, if you are writing a message on WhatsApp, just drop the message, then you click it. The message is sent and received instantly. It's fast. Speed. Fast. Virtual communication is fast. Then we can say it also enables organization to harness talent, to harness talent, enables organizations to harness talent from anywhere. If people do not have to meet physically, then it means they can work from homes, remotely, in any continent. And that way, organizations are able to amass the best people for the job, thereby increasing productivity. If you're in Kenya, then you don't need to apply to give work to the people only in Kenya. You can get access to labor globally. You can go online and maybe make an advert, seek for employees online. You can tap talent from anywhere in the world because people will work from wherever they are. They don't need to travel to Kenya, no. So virtual communication allows organizations to harness talent from anywhere. 6, promotes flexibility. Promotes flexibility. And candidates, this is essential for busy people who are struggling with work and life balance. Work and life balance. For example, mothers who are working. So balancing work and family can be tricky. That is where virtual communication helps them work from wherever they are. Because they can communicate very fast, they can work very fast and submit their work virtually. So these are 6 benefits. There are many benefits, candidates. There are many benefits of virtual communication. But with benefits, there are also limitations. So we can not just discuss benefits and fail to discuss the limitations. Limitations of virtual communication. What are the disadvantages? The first obvious one is technical problems. Technical problems. Virtual communication relies on software. It relies on machines, relies on internet technology, which can malfunction at any time. And that may affect ongoing and scheduled virtual communication. It's prone to technical problems. Difficult to organize. Limitation number 2, difficult to do what? To organize. Now, for facilitators, candidates, virtual meetings can prove difficult to manage, as you can't rely on everyone having access to the same meeting, okay, as compared to having a physical meeting. When you are facilitating a meeting virtually, it's not easy to organize people who are not physically present. All right? Difficult to organize. The third limitation, interactions between participants is difficult. The interactions between participants, the participants in a virtual meeting, is not easy. It's more challenging for all attendees to take an active role when the meeting is virtual, particularly when groups are large. But we know in person, it's possible to talk over each other to some extent, creating a back and forth conversation if it's physical. But in virtual meetings, it's difficult to hear if more than one person is speaking, and that can lead to difficulties in communication. The fourth limitation of virtual meetings is that that one of difference in time difference among the participants, time difference among the participants, time difference among the participants. Candidates, virtual meetings are scheduled at a specific time, and not all members can be free at that particular time. That's a challenge. So these are 4 challenges or limitations of virtual meetings or virtual communication. We've completed or come to the end of today's lesson, where we sought to study communicating in virtual groups. We defined virtual communication. We defined group emails and how they are formed. We've discussed the advantages and disadvantages of group emails. We went further to discuss the second type of virtual group, which is WhatsApp groups. We explained how they are formed. We've gone further to discuss social media. We've outlined the various social media platforms like Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, and so on. Then we've discussed the advantages and disadvantages of virtual communication. Disadvantages of virtual communication. As it is our custom, you will take home this assignment. Your assignment number 1, define virtual communication. Number 2, highlight 4 benefits and 4 limitations of group emails. Number 3, outline the benefits and the limitations of virtual communication. That is your today's assignment. Thank you for attending the lesson. God bless you. Bye-bye. Greetings, candidates. Welcome to the study of Advanced Public Financial Management. The topic, the Office of the Auditor General. Candidates, you are expected to explain the role of Parliament as an oversight body under the topic, the Office of Auditor General. By the end of this lesson, you should be able to explain the role of Parliament as an oversight body. And candidates, we all know that Parliament is a legislative elected body of government, and it has a number of functions like representing the electorate, making laws, authorizing government to spend public money, scrutinizing activities of government ministries, departments, as well as agencies. Parliament is also a forum for debate on national issues and so on. So the Parliament, furthermore, candidates, the Parliament of Kenya is a bicameral parliament that consists of 2 houses. That is the National Assembly and the Senate. It is composed of the Speaker of the National Assembly, the Speaker of the Senate, their deputies, and members of Parliament that are commonly referred to as members of the National Assembly and senators. So the question is, what is the role of Parliament as an oversight body? As an oversight body. Oversight body. Oversight. What is the meaning of oversight? Now, candidates, oversight is the process by which the Parliament monitors the quality of the work of government regarding implementation of laws, development of plans, development of or preparation of budgets that have been previously adopted by the Parliament. So, candidates, parliamentary oversight is defined as review or monitoring of government and public institutions, including implementation of policies, implementation of laws, and so on. So, Parliament oversight, I can also say, provides democratic legitimacy by representing the views of the public, while at the same time ensuring that political authorities and security institutions are restricted to their lawful roles. Parliamentary oversight also prevents abuse of power, prevents abuse of human rights, and violations by the state authorities. Violations by the state authorities. That is the meaning of parliamentary oversight. So, candidates, the key functions of parliamentary oversight include the key functions of parliamentary oversight include, number one, to detect and prevent illegal and unconstitutional conduct, detect and prevent illegal and unconstitutional conduct, to detect and prevent unconstitutional conduct on the part of the government and public agencies. That is the one key function of parliamentary oversight. And at the core of this function, candidates, is the protection of the rights and liberties of the citizens. The second function is to hold the government to account. Hold the government to account. To hold the government to account in respect of how the taxpayers' money is used. And this is done by detecting waste within the machinery of government and also public agencies. And candidates, therefore, we can say, by detecting wastages within the government and the government agencies, that leads to improvement of efficiency, improvement of effectiveness, improvement in the economy, and also efficiency of government operations. That is a key function of parliamentary oversight. The other one is in relation to policies. Policies to ensure that policies announced by the government and authorized by the parliament are actually delivered. Delivery of policies. The policies that are announced by the government and the policies that are authorized by parliament, it is a key function of parliamentary oversight to ensure that such policies are delivered, they are actually delivered. And this function includes monitoring the achievement of goals that are set by legislation and that are set by the government programs and so on. Another key function is to improve transparency. Improve transparency. To improve transparency. To improve transparency. And this is transparency of government operations and also to enhance public trust in the government, which is itself a condition of effective policy delivery. So candidates, parliaments can use its powers to verify whether the laws and policies on, for example, on security are being implemented, and the implementation must be effective. The parliament can also use its powers to ensure that the policies have been implemented effectively. So these are some of the key functions of parliamentary oversight. And the typical powers, candidates, for democratic oversight may include, because it's important, candidates, for us to note down the powers that the parliament should have in order to carry out these functions. So we are now going to discuss the powers for democratic oversight by parliament. Powers for democratic oversight. Powers for democratic oversight by parliament. What power does parliament have in order to carry out these key functions? We have said detecting and preventing illegal and unconstitutional conduct by government and government agencies, holding the government to account, delivery of policies, improving efficiency, and so on. Now, candidates, the first power that parliament has is the right to question the executive. The right to question the executive. The right to question the executive arm of government. Okay? The right to question the executive in parliamentary sessions, and also to debate the merits of government policies and decisions. Right to debate. To debate executive policies and programs. Number 3, the right to demand. The right to demand security officials and executive security officials and executive authorities account for their decisions. Account for their decisions. The right to demand security officials and executive authorities account for their decisions, account for their conduct, account for their decisions, account for their conduct or use of resources, or use of resources, or use of resources, and sometimes that has to be done under oath. And that may also include candidates the right to access sensitive or classified information, right to access sensitive or classified sites, classified information, including briefings by security institutions. The Parliament also has the right to gather evidence, including visiting and inspecting security installations, gathering testimonies, and assessing government documents, and sometimes including operational information. Another right is the right to conduct official inquiries, right to conduct official inquiries. The right to conduct official inquiries, that also may include investigations or independent audits in cases where misconduct or abuse of office is suspected. They also have right to make recommendations, right to make, let me say, findings and recommendations. The right to make findings and recommendations, and that has to be done without endangering sensitive information. So these are the powers for democratic oversight by Parliament. We started by listing the functions of parliamentary oversight. The first function is to detect and prevent illegal or unconstitutional conduct, holding the government to account, ensuring that the government delivers on the policies that they have promised, and also improving transparency and so on. For the Parliament to carry out these functions, I've said, then Parliament needs to have certain powers. These are the powers for democratic oversight by Parliament. The first power is a right to question the executive. That's number one. Number two is the right to debate executive policies and programs, the right to demand that security officials and executive authorities account for decisions, account for conduct, to account for use of resources, and that has to be sometimes done under oath. We also say that the Parliament has a right to access sensitive or classified information, the right to also collect evidence, including visiting security institutions, the right to demand or initiate official inquiries, the right to make findings, and also recommendations. So candidates, these are the powers of democratic oversight. And that effectively brings today's lesson to a close. We are studying the role of Parliament as an oversight body. We set out the objective of this lesson. We had said that by the end of this lesson, you should be able to outline the functions of Parliament oversight, and we've gone ahead to list the powers of Parliament in order to carry out, the Parliament has, that will enable it to carry out the parliamentary oversight. Thank you for attending today's lesson. In our next session, we'll continue to study the role of Parliament, and in the next lesson, we will consider parliamentary committees, because candidates, you are expected to understand the role of Parliament as an oversight body and also parliamentary oversight committees in both the National Assembly and the Senate. Thank you. God bless you. Bye-bye.
Hello learners, welcome again to Manifested e-learning platform. Today I would like us to progress with public finance, and we are going to look at the second topic. Our second topic in public finance is about establishment of public funds in public sector. That is topic 2, which is establishment of public funds in public sector. Establishment of public funds in public sector. Remember, when we talk about public funds, we simply refers to the funds that belongs to the members of the general public, or we can also refer to them as government funds, and they are simply funds that are created by the government with one agenda or with one main objective, that is to benefit the members of the general public. In this particular topic, as we dig deeper and deeper, we will see also different types of public funds. But for today, or for now, I would like us first of all to see the subtopics that we are going to look at in this particular area. So our first topic will be the provision of establishment of public funds. So subtopics. Our subtopic number 1 will be provision for establishment of public funds. Provision for establishment of public funds. Provision for establishment of public funds. So in this particular area, we are going to see some of the provisions that guides the establishment of these particular funds. Remember, you cannot just wake up one day and you opt to come up with a certain fund. So you have to be guided by certain provisions and the constitution of that particular country. So we look at that when it comes to the analysis, and we see some of those particular acts. Then we look at subtopic number 2, which will be the justification or justification of establishment of public funds, justification of establishment of the public funds. So in this particular area, we will see why do we need to create public funds, or what is the rationale that is behind creation of public funds. That is rationale of establishing these particular public funds. Can a government operate without these particular public funds? So we'll also see some of the importances of the same, or why do we need to establish these particular funds. From there, number 3, or our subtopic number 3, we look at the consolidated fund, we also remember consolidated fund is part of the public fund. So we will see more about the consolidated fund, and I had said there before that as we continue with this particular topic, we'll also see some of the examples of the public funds, especially those ones that are established in our country. So one of them will be the consolidated fund. Then our next subtopic, we'll also look at the other fund, that is number 4, that is establishment of the contingency funds, the establishment of contingency funds, a contingency fund, which is also part of the public fund. These are simply funds that are created to cater for emergencies. Remember, in a country, an accident can occur, or something can crop up which was not planned, or which was not well contemplated by the government, and therefore sometimes we tend to create contingency fund to cater for the same. So again, you will see more about contingency funds. The other fund that we'll also look at, which will be now part of subtopic number 5, is the establishment of equalization fund. A fund that is created by the government so that we can try to empower and make the marginalized areas to grow, at least so that at least we can make them at par with the other developed counties. The country of Kenya, we have 47 counties, and some of these particular counties, they are not well developed. In fact, some of the areas are marginalized, and therefore we create equalization fund so that at least we can try to allocate these marginalized areas more money, so that at least we can make them grow and attain the level of other developed counties. Then we'll also look at a subtopic number 6, that is county revenue sources, county revenue sources. So at this particular subtopic, we will see some of the sources of the sources of revenue of the county government. Remember, with the effect from the year 2010, when the government of Kenya was devolved, we devolved, we now have the national government and we have the county government. The national government raises its finances majorly from taxes, but also we have county government that also raises money so that at least also it can achieve its objectives. For instance, you see there is like they can get like donations, they can get like grants, they can get like parking fees, they have like land rates, licenses and all that. So you see some of the sources of county revenue sources. These are some of the topics that we are going to cover in these, some of the subtopics, sorry, that we are going to cover in this particular topic of establishment of public funds in public sector. Now we need to proceed and we need to discuss, and we start with topic number 1, that is provision for establishment of public funds. That will be my first subtopic. My first subtopic is provision of establishments of public funds establishment of public funds. We are simply saying that in this particular subtopic, establishment of public funds, we need to know what is a public funds, and again we need also to know some of the provisions that have been set aside so that can dictate the establishment that should be followed in the process of establishing these public funds. So we are simply saying that there are different types of funds that are established by the government, but one person cannot wake up one day and come up with a certain fund. There is a protocol, there is a procedure, there is a system that is put in place that is supposed to be followed in the process of establishing these particular public funds. And again, we are seeing in our constitution, because there is a provision for the creation of public funds, there is also guidelines that are meant to be followed when it comes to establishment. And again, after we establish, then thereafter, remember that particular public fund is supposed to operate, and therefore also how that particular procedure is supposed to operate is also guided by the provisions that we have in our act. So when we talk about public funds, what are we simply talking about? Public fund, we are simply saying that this is a fund that is created by the government with an objective of benefiting the members of the general public. So a fund that is created by the government for the purpose of benefiting the members of the general public. So I can put it here that a public fund is a fund created by the government as per the constitution and it is meant to achieve its objective as per the Act. Its objective as per the Act. Simply because we are saying we have different types of funds. So the fund that is created, for instance, the consolidated fund, it is there to achieve its objectives. Consolidated fund, it is there again to achieve its objective. And again, when we talk about also like equalization fund, it has its own objective. So we are saying in general public funds, they are funds that are created by the government as per the Constitution of the Republic of Kenya, and it is meant to achieve its objective as stipulated by the Act. Some of the provisions that are put in place under the establishment of this includes provisions put in place. Provision put in place includes provisions put in place includes. Let's see some of the provisions that have been put in place that guides the establishment of public funds. One of the provisions that is put in place is there should be a procedure that is put in place which is supposed to be followed in establishment and creation of this particular fund. That is a procedure. There should be a procedure. There should be a procedure and system to be followed in creation and there should be a procedure and a system to be followed in creation and operation of public funds. There should be a procedure and a system to be followed in creation and operation of public funds. Simply because if we do not have procedures, if we do not have systems, then obviously we will have some problems. Some issues are likely to crop up. For instance, we can have like a misappropriation of these particular funds. So a procedure has to be put in place and a system need to be there which is supposed to be followed in the process of establishing or creating and operating these particular funds. The other thing that is supposed to be followed and the other provision that is supposed to be there, that is provision number 2, is that an accounting system should be put in place that should appreciate accounting for this particular fund. So accounting system should be put in place. Accounting system should be put in place to ensure proper accounting of funds, proper accounting of the government funds. So we need to have an accounting system that is supposed to be followed in the process of accounting for this particular money. Otherwise, without an accounting system and we are dealing with the funds, obviously you find that there will be some challenges, there will be complaints, there will be dissatisfaction and such things. The other thing is, the other provision that is supposed to be followed is we need to ensure that this money that is received or public funds should be accounted for as per the provisions of the Act. That is, public funds should be accounted for as per the provisions of the Act. We are saying that for everything that we are doing, especially when it comes to establishment of this particular fund, we follow our constitution. And therefore, the constitution is very, very clear on how we are supposed to account for public funds. And therefore, it is supposed to be, the accounting for that particular money is supposed to be done as the procedures that are stipulated in the Act. The other thing that we are supposed to have, or the other provision that we are supposed to have, is if we have to establish a public fund, then we must get an approval from the members of the National Assembly. That is to establish a public fund, an approval must be obtained from the members of the National Assembly, National Assembly, from the members of the National Assembly. Remember, we need to get approval of this because the members of the National Assembly, they are the one who make laws, and therefore whatever can be any law that is passed in the country and it end up affecting the country indirectly or negatively, then the members of the general public are likely to blame our members of parliament, because they are there to make sure that what they are doing, the laws that they are coming up with, or how the country is run, at least they are putting an eye on everything. Because those are the members of the general public, they may not be able to follow up what is happening on day-to-day basis, and therefore we also need to ensure that any fund that is established, at least they have a take on it. We need to seek an approval from them, so that at least we can be guaranteed that that particular fund is meant to benefit the members of the general public. The other thing is, as part of the public funds again, we expect also the CS or the cabinet secretary can also appoint somebody to administer this particular fund. You know, like in Kenya, with the new constitution, then we have the position of cabinet secretary, and therefore the cabinet secretary of finance can also appoint somebody who is empowered by the constitution to administer or to monitor what is happening in this particular public fund. So another provision is the cabinet secretary of treasury can appoint an administrator to monitor the operations, of National Public Fund, we are saying that the CS also has power to appoint an administrator. We have that allowance in the constitution. The CS can appoint somebody, is allowed by the law to appoint an administrator in order to monitor the operations of the public funds, so that at least we can make sure that what is going on the same, maybe the CS is updated directly. Don't forget that the CS is answerable in case this money is misappropriated. We will request the CS to come up and tell us why that money was misappropriated and what. That is why we are empowering him to have somebody who can help him again to monitor the operations of such public funds. The other provision again that we have the Act is we also need to make sure that the financial statements are prepared and as at the end of every year, so that they can also be checked by the Auditor General, by CRA and such. So the other provision is preparation of financial statements, preparation of financial statements at the end of every financial year. Preparation of the financial statement as at the end of every financial year. Remember, this financial statement will reflect how that fund was being utilized, or how that money was being spent and all that. Therefore, when we prepare all these accounts, we need to account for that and we prepare the final account. Remember, we maintain the records every day. But the person who is in charge of checking these particular records or verifying may not be interested so much with the day-to-day transactions. So we expect the person who is in charge to prepare the final accounts and you hand over to the responsible persons. The other provisions that we have is we need to submit these final accounts to the Auditor General for audit purpose. That is, there should be submission of financial statements to the Auditor General for audit purpose. So remember, the Auditor General is there to check and give an assurance that the amount that was raised was utilized for the intended purpose. We need that particular assurance. That is why we expect the person who is in charge of this fund or these funds accounting should be done very well, proper recording. Then we prepare also the final statements and we hand them over to the Auditor General so that the Auditor General can also go ahead and audit the same. We also expect, after you hand over the final accounts to the Auditor General, you also need to give a copy to the office of the to the National Treasury. You also need to give a copy of the same to CRA, Commissioner on Revenue Allocation. You also need to give another copy to the Controller of Budget. So the other provision that we need to have is that a copy of the financial statement, should be submitted to CRA, Commissioner on Revenue Allocation, Controller of Budget, and to the National Treasury and to the National Treasury. To the National Treasury. So we also expect to do that, to hand over such a copy to those particular offices and the persons. The other thing that we also need to know, still under the provisions of the of these particular public funds, is the CS also has power to wind up a public fund. So we can also see some provisions that are related to winding up of public funds. So here we can talk about provisions related to winding up of public fund. What does the law say about winding up of public funds? What does the law say about that? One thing is, the law says the cabinet secretary has power to wind up a public fund, but he cannot do that on his own. We expect to get an approval from the members of the National Assembly. So one provision under winding up is that the CS or the cabinet secretary can wind up a public fund, but with an approval of National Assembly. With an approval of National Assembly. With an approval of National Assembly. He cannot do it on his own. No, we expect to get an approval or a consent from the members of the General Assembly, because for you to wind up, you need to tell us why. Why are you winding up that particular fund? So all that justification need to be provided, and because the members of the National Assembly participated in approving the formation of the same, they also need to participate in winding up that particular fund, so that at least we may not make a mistake by winding up maybe a performing fund. The other thing that we also need to know about the winding up is we can be having some money in this particular fund. So what is our constitution providing on the same? Because sometimes the fund can be having money. Therefore, as far as our constitution is concerned, it states that in case the public fund is having some finances, that money is supposed to be deposited with the exchequer account, or it is supposed to be deposited with the government account. Therefore, we can say that if there is money in the public fund, it should be deposited. With the exchequer. Or government account. It should be deposited with the exchequer or the government account, because you cannot close the account yet we have the money, so that amount has again to be cleared with the same. The other thing is sometimes we can be having some some areas and what relating to these particular funds. So if there are areas that we are having as far as these funds are concerned, then the person who is in charge can pay those particular areas at deficit, but he must get an approval from the members of the National Assembly. So if there is arrears or deficit, then they can be paid, but approval need to be obtained from the National Assembly. So the Constitution provides that in case of a deficit, in case of a deficit, during winding up, it can be settled, but with approval from National Assembly. From the National Assembly. You cannot take the public fund, you make the payment, and you have not obtained an approval from the members of the National Assembly. The other provision that we are likely to have relating to winding up is the preparation of the final accounts and closing of the books. That is also during winding up, the financial statements should be prepared and be hardened or submitted to the responsible persons, e.g. auditors, National Assembly, etc. So again, when you are winding up, you need to make sure that again the records are okay, the records are up to date, so that again you can submit them to the persons who are involved, and then we make sure that they are subjected to proper verification, so that we can proceed with the procedure of winding up accordingly. So those are some of the provisions that we have relating to establishment and establishment of public funds in the public sector, relating to formation, relating to operations, and relating to winding up. So with that, we come to the end of our session today. So meaning that in our next class, we'll look at the justification of establishment of public fund, or the rationale of establishment of public funds. So thank you very much. So let's meet in the next class so that we can proceed with public funds. Thank you.
Thank you for watching this video. Don't forget to get yourself a copy of our professionally prepared study text and revision partners.
Greetings, candidates, and welcome. Today, under the topic, the financing decision, we are going to study the characteristics, the benefits, and the drawbacks of lease finance. In our previous sessions, we've covered the equity finance, debt finance, and hybrids. Today, we are on the fourth long-term source of funds, known as lease finance. And by the end of this lesson, you should be able to explain the characteristics of lease finance, and you should also be able to outline the advantages and disadvantages of lease finance. which is a long-term source of finance that allows businesses to use assets without having to purchase them outright. And in a lease agreement, the lessor or the owner of the asset provides the lessee, who is the user of the asset, the right to use the asset for a specified period of time, usually in exchange of regular lease payments. So in a lease agreement, we have a party known as the lessor, who is the owner of the asset. Another party is the lessee, who is the user of the asset. And in a lease agreement, the lessor uses the asset without necessarily having to buy it. So we're going to study the characteristics, the benefits, and the drawbacks of lease finance, which is a long-term source of finance. Let us begin with the characteristics. Characteristics of lease finance. One is asset usage without ownership. Asset usage without ownership. Lease finance allows businesses to use assets such as equipment, real estate, motor vehicles without owning them. And the lessor retains the ownership. The ownership is retained by the lessor, while the lessee, who is the user, gets the right to use the asset. So ownership remains with the lessor, and the usage is on the part of the lessee, the one who uses the asset. Right? So it is a source of finance. Asset usage without ownership is the first characteristic of lease finance. Number two, we are outlining the characteristics of lease finance. Fixed period, and payments. Fixed periods and payments. Lease agreements typically have a fixed lease period or term, and the lessee makes regular payments to the lessor. The one who uses the asset pays the owner regular payments, fixed payments over a specified period of time. And these payments include both the principal, may include both the principal and interest components. Fixed period and fixed payments. Another characteristics can be on the basis of types of leases. Types of leases. Lease agreements can be classified as either operating leases or finance leases. Finance leases or operating leases. And candidates, operating leases are more like rental agreements, while finance leases often transfer ownership to the lessor at the expiry of the term. So we have operating leases and finance leases. Operating leases operate like rental payments. The lessor pays the lessee payments, right? Lease payments over a period of time, but at the end of the term, the asset is not transferred to the lessee. On the other hand, the finance lease transfers ownership to the lessee at the end of the term. So here there are two types: operating lease agreement and finance. This one is short term, this one is long term. This one, at the end of the lease agreement, the asset is transferred to the lessee Operating lease is more like rent payment. The fourth characteristic is in relation to maintenance. Maintenance responsibility. Maintenance responsibility. The lessor may retain responsibility for maintaining and servicing the leased asset in operating leases. Do you understand? While the lessee may take on such responsibilities in the finance lease agreement. So maintenance responsibility, the one who maintains the asset, is dependent on the type of the lease. As for the operating lease, the lessor, the owner of the asset, is charged the responsibility to maintain the asset. On the other hand, in a finance lease agreement, the lessee, the one who uses the asset, maintains the asset. So maintenance responsibility is dependent on the type of the lease. Or you understand? Yes. 5, flexibility. Flexibility. Lease finance provides flexibility. It provides flexibility, allowing businesses to do what? To acquire assets without a large sum amount, without having to pay upfront capital outlay. And that is particularly beneficial for companies without budget. Companies with budget constraints. It is beneficial for companies with budget constraints. Companies are able to have access to assets without necessarily having to pay large sums of amounts upfront. Flexibility. So these are 5 characteristics. Pros of lease finance. Pros of lease finance. What are the benefits of lease finance? One is conservation of capital. Conservation of capital. Lease finance enables businesses to conserve capital by avoiding the large upfront payments associated with asset purchases. And that capital can then be used to carry out, or can be used in other ways, like strategic needs, meeting strategic needs and other operational needs. Capital is conserved. Instead of buying large, instead of financing assets, instead of paying assets, large amounts of assets to acquire, large amounts of sums to acquire assets, capital is conserved, and the capital that is conserved can then be used to fund other activities, other projects. 2, tax benefit. Is also another advantage of lease finance. Lease payments may be treated as operating expenses, which offers potential tax benefits. And candidates' tax treatment can vary based on the type of lease and the regulations within the country. There is a tax benefit associated with lease finance. You understand? 3, up to date equipment or assets. Up to date. Lease allows businesses to access the latest equipment, the latest technology, without the need for frequent large-scale capital investments. And that can be especially important in industries with rapid evolving technologies. Up-to-date equipment. Number 4, the fourth benefit of lease finance is off-balance sheet financing. Off balance sheet financing. What do I mean by off balance sheet financing? Now, candidates operating leases in particular may keep leased assets off the company's balance sheet, and that can impact financial ratios and debt covenants positively. Because remember, we say that operating leases are not owned by the business, they are owned by the lessor. Operating leases, leased assets are owned, operating leased assets are owned by the lessor, and therefore such assets are kept off the balance sheet. They don't appear as assets in the balance sheet of the lessee, and that can be advantageous in various ways. Off balance sheet financing. Lease financial assets may also have flexible end of term options. Flexible end of term options may have flexible end of term options. At the end of the lease term, businesses often have the flexibility to return the asset, to renew the lease, to purchase the asset, and that the price at which the business can buy the asset may be predetermined. Or another alternative could be entering into a new lease agreement for an upgraded equipment. So there are many options at the end of the lease term. I've mentioned it could be returning the asset. The business can renew the lease agreement. The lessor can purchase the asset, or even enter into an entirely new lease agreement for an asset that is up to date, upgraded equipment. So it has flexible end of term options. Flexible end of term options. These are benefits. How about cons? Cons of lease finance. Disadvantages of lease finance. What are the disadvantages of lease finance? 1, higher overall cost. Higher overall cost. What does that mean? That means that over the long term, lease payments may result in higher overall cost compared to purchasing the asset outright. And that is particularly true for finance leases where the lessee assumes ownership at the end. It may be cheaper to purchase an asset outright than enter into a lease agreement with the lessor. Number 2, we've seen that the lessee does not own the asset, no ownership. With lease finance, the business never owns the asset outright unless it exercises a purchase option at the end of the lease term. And that means the business doesn't benefit from asset appreciation. 3, restrictions on use. Some lease agreements come with restrictions on the use of the leased asset. And any violation of such terms could result in penalties or even termination of the lease agreement. Thus, a disadvantage. Restrictions on use. 4, dependency on the lessor. dependency on the lessor. Dependency on the lessor. The business relies on lease finance. The business that rely on lease finance are dependent on lessor for the availability of assets and for favorable lease terms. And therefore, changes in lessor policies or changes in the financial health of the lessor may negatively impact the lessee. Five, lease classification changes. How is changes in lease classification a disadvantage to the business? Now, changes in accounting standards, such as the International Financial Reporting Standards, particularly number 16, and the Financial Accounting Standards, may impact the classification of lease and affect the financial reporting of the lessor. There are times where the financial reporting standards may change, and such changes may negatively impact the financial reporting of the lessor. So these are 5 disadvantages of lease finance. We've identified 5 benefits of lease finance. We've also highlighted 5 characteristics of lease finance. The first one being asset usage without ownership. There is a fixed period and payment that is a characteristic. Leases can also be classified as either operating leases or finance leases. There is the characteristic on maintenance responsibility. We saw that the responsibility to maintain the asset is dependent on the type of the asset. For the operating lease, it is the lessor who maintains the asset, and for the finance lease, the lessee has the responsibility to maintain the asset. Another feature is on flexibility. So these are 5 characteristics. We have identified 5 advantages. One is conservation of capital. Number 2, tax benefit. Number 3, up-to-date equipment. Or number 4, off-balance sheet financing. Number 5, flexible end-of-term options. There are also 5 disadvantages. One is the higher overall cost. Number 2, there is no ownership. Number 3, restrictions on use. Number 4, dependency on the lessor. Number 5, lease classification changes. Do you understand, candidates, the characteristics, the disadvantages and disadvantages of lease agreement? So we've come to the end of the lesson, and in conclusion, candidates, we can say that lease finance offers businesses a means to acquire and a means to use assets without the need for significant capital outlay or purchasing the assets outright. And while lease finance provides flexibility and certain financial advantages, businesses must carefully consider the long-term costs. Businesses should consider ownership implications and the impact of the lease agreements on the financial statements and ratios. And the choice between lease finance and outright purchase depends on the specific needs and the specific financial objectives of the business. That is crucial before settling on lease finance as a long-term source of finance. There are other factors that ought to be put into consideration. Thank you for attending the lesson. Here is your today's assignment. 1. What role does lease finance play in a company's capital structure, and how does it differ from traditional debt financing? 2. Discuss the advantages and disadvantages of lease financing of businesses, considering factors such as flexibility and long-term commitments. Number 3, how does lease finance impact financial statements and ratios, and what considerations should organizations keep in mind while deciding to lease assets for their operations? Thank you for your time. Continue attending the lessons. Make sure you go through the video one more time and answer the questions without referring to your notes. Thank you. Bye-bye. Greetings and welcome to the Public Sector Governance, Policy and Administration Learning Session. Today we are going to study the 6th subtopic. The first topic or second topic, which is the interface between the county and national governments. The interface between the national and county governments. That is our today's lesson. Now, candidates, the interface between the national and county governments in Kenya is defined by the Constitution of Kenya, which sets out the distribution of powers and functions between the two levels of government. The Constitution recognizes the interdependence and cooperation between the national and county governments in the governments of the country. These are not autonomous, distinct governments. No, the Constitution recognizes that the national government and the county governments have to depend on each other. There ought to be cooperation between the national and county governments in the governance of the country. And the national government has the responsibility of ensuring that county governments operate effectively and efficiently, while the county governments have the responsibility of implementing and managing services and functions at the county level or the local level. And the Constitution provides a number of mechanisms for the interface between the national and the county governments. That's what we are going to study in our today's lesson. Interface between the national and the county governments. The first mechanism is what we call the national county coordination. National county coordination. The Constitution establishes the Intergovernmental Relations Act, which provides for the establishment of the Intergovernmental Relations Tribunal, a technical committee, right? And this committee facilitates the coordination and cooperation between the county and the national government, between the county governments and the national governments. So there is what we call the national county coordination. The Intergovernmental Relations Act provides for the establishment of the Intergovernmental Relations Technical Committee. You understand? The intergovernmental relations. This is a committee that is established by an act of parliament known as the Intergovernmental Relations Act. And I've said that one of the key functions of this committee is to facilitate coordination and cooperation. Coordination and cooperation between the county governments and the national government. That is one mechanism for the interface between the county and national governments. Number 2, sharing of revenue. Sharing of revenue. The Constitution provides for a revenue sharing formula between the national and the county governments, with the national government providing funds to the county governments to support their operations and the provision of services. That is another mechanism for interface between the national government and the county governments. Sharing of revenue. Revenue that is collected at the national level is expected to be shared between the national government and the county governments. 3, concurrent functions. Concurrent function, not current, but concurrent functions. Some functions are shared between the national and county government. They are shared, such as agriculture, health, functions such as trade. They are shared. That means that the national government performs such functions as the same functions as the county government. They are shared by both the national government and the county governments, like agriculture functions around trade, functions around agriculture, trade, industry, and so on. And if they are shared, then there is need for coordination between the two levels of government. So that is another mechanism for interface between the national government and county governments. Concurrent functions. 4, dispute resolution. Dispute resolution. Now, the Constitution provides for mechanism for resolving dispute between the national and the county governments, including negotiation, mediation, and ultimately through the courts. Dispute resolution is another mechanism for interface between the national and county governments. We've seen that these two institutions ought to work together, and we all know that disputes are unavoidable. So there is a mechanism for resolving dispute. The Constitution provides for mechanism for doing what? For resolving disputes between the national and county governments. And such mechanisms are through negotiation, through mediation, and also if mediation and negotiation does not work, then ultimately then there are courts to help in resolving any conflicts that may arise between the national government and also the county governments. 5, Council of Governors. There is such thing as Council of Governors. The Council of Governors is a body established under the Constitution of Kenya to promote cooperation between the national government and the county governments. And the council is made up of the 47 governors, and it's responsible for coordinating the functions of the county governments. 6, we can highlight the national and county governments coordination summit. National and county government coordination summit. National and county government coordination summit is yet another mechanism for interface between the county government and the national government. Candidates, the national and county government coordination summit is a forum that is established to facilitate the dialogue between the county government and the national government. It is a forum that has been established to facilitate dialogue, to facilitate consultation between the national and county governments on matters of common interest. So these are mechanisms to help us understand the interface between the county and the national government. So thank you for attending the lesson. Here is your today's assignment on the interface between county and national government. Exercise number 1 is what mechanisms are in place to facilitate cooperation and coordination between the national and county governments in policy implementation. 2, how do disputes between the national and county governments typically get solved in your country? 3, describe a recent example of successful collaboration between the national and county governments in addressing a significant issue. Thank you for attending the lesson. In our next session, we are going to study statutory provisions for conflict resolution in Kenya. Bye-bye. Greetings, candidates, and welcome to the lesson. We are going to study the internally generated funds and the externally generated funds under the topic, the financing decision. These are two broad categories of financing sources for enterprises. And understanding the distinctions between the internally generated funds and the externally generated types of funds is crucial for effective financial management. So we are going in our today's lesson to do a comparison between internally generated funds and externally generated funds. That's what we'll study in our today's lesson. Externally generated funds. We'll first of all look at the internally generated funds. Now, our distinction will be based on certain features or characteristics, like the source. Source. Let me put it down here. Source. What is the source of internally generated funds or origin? Candidates, internally generated funds, as the name suggests, originate from within a company's own operations and activities, and is primarily composed of retained earnings, accumulated reserves, depreciation funds, and so on. These funds originate from companies' own operations. The origin, the source, originates from companies' own operations or activities. Source. I've given examples. The retained earnings, accumulated reserves, retained reserves, accumulated depreciation funds, and so on. We can also distinguish internally generated funds from externally generated funds on the basis of ownership. 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 Now, internally generated funds do not dilute the control ownership or ownership control of existing shareholders. Do not dilute the ownership control. These internally generated funds do not dilute ownership control. But the externally generated funds, they dilute the ownership control. They do what? They dilute the ownership control. Internally generated funds originates from companies' own operations and activities, but externally generated funds originate from outside. They come from outside sources, like debt financing, like equity financing, and various other capital sources. But internally generated funds, these are funds that originate from within the company's operations and activities. Number two, ownership. Internally generated funds do not dilute ownership control, whereas externally generated funds dilute ownership control. We can also distinguish the two on the basis of cost. Cost. And when we are referring to cost, we can mention something on the cost structure. Generally, internally generated funds do not involve explicit costs, like interest payments, like dividends, and so on. They do not involve explicit costs. Do not involve explicit costs like interest payments, dividend payments, and so on. But externally generated funds involve explicit costs like interest, like dividends, and so on. Cost structure. 4, flexibility. Flexibility. Now, internally generated funds as a source, this source of funding, this source of finances from within the company provides greater flexibility in decision making. Provides greater flexibility in decision making. Provides greater flexibility in decision making. Why? Because the company is not bound by external debt covenants or the expectations of external investors. The company is flexible. If the company wants to use retained earnings, does not need approval from external people or providers. So it's more flexible. These sources, internally generated funds, these sources of funds are generally flexible compared to external sources. 5, stability. Financial stability. Now, relying on internally generated funds, when a company relies, let me put it this way, when a company relies on internally generated funds, such a company enhances financial stability, especially during economic downturns. Why? Because the company is less dependent on external sources, is less dependent on the external markets for financing. It's more, provides more stability. Okay? Do you understand? Relying on internal funds enhances financial stability. Enhances financial stability. Do you understand? As you are going to see, as you compare the two, let me have another column here for comparison purposes. This is a column for internally generated funds. You can have another one here for externally generated funds. Number one, on the basis of the source, distinguishing the two, internally generated funds originate from companies' own operations. For externally generated funds, these funds originate from outside the company. From outside, like debt financing, hire purchase, and so on. These funds are originated from outside, and they comprise funds raised through loans, bonds, equity issuance, venture capital, private equity, and other external financing mechanisms. We also distinguished the two based on ownership, and we stated here that internally generated funds do not dilute ownership control. But externally generated funds often involve external investors or creditors, leading to potential dilution of ownership control. This one leads to dilution of ownership control, because new investors are brought into the company, and the existing company, the existing shareholders do not enjoy a monopoly in ownership. The ownership is now shared once new investors are brought on board. Do you understand? Number three, we saw here that internally generated funds do not involve explicit costs, but external funds typically come with explicit costs, such as interest payments for debt or dividends for equity. These funds come with explicit costs. I've mentioned interest payments, dividend payments, and so on. The other distinction is based on flexibility. We saw that internally generated funds provide greater flexibility in decision making. Provide greater flexibility in decision making. But for externally generated funds, there are constraints. External financing may come with specific terms and conditions, may come with covenants, may come with expectations, and companies may have to adhere to certain constraints imposed by creditors or investors. External generated funds come with constraints, There are decision constraints. External financing may come with specific terms and conditions. Terms, conditions come with terms, conditions, covenants, and so on. There is no flexibility in decision making. A company is not free to make decisions when involving external investors, like debt covenants, where maybe the assets of the company are charged on the basis of the debts. A company is not free. So here there is less or no flexibility. Little flexibility, no flexibility compared to internally generated funds. Do you understand? Then there is the aspect of stability. Internally generated funds enhances financial stability, But for externally generated funds, there is what we call market dependency. The company depends hugely on the market. Companies that rely heavily on external financing may face challenges during economic downturns or in volatile markets, such as where external funds are subject to market conditions and investor sentiments. Do you understand? So these are four four points to illustrate the difference between externally generated funds and internally generated funds. And when deciding on whether to opt for internally generated funds or the externally generated funds, there are other considerations that the company can put into that could consider. There are considerations that the company has to look at, like risk and return. The decision to use internal or external funds may depend on the risk tolerance of the company and the return expectations of the investors. And we know that external financing may offer higher leverage, but also provides higher risks and costs. Another factor to consider when selecting either between internally generated funds or externally generated funds is the growth and expansion. For substantial growth initiatives or capital-intensive projects, companies may resort to a combination of internal and external financing. Why? In order to meet their funding requirements. So we discussed 4 points that has helped us understand the distinction between internally generated funds and externally generated funds. The first distinction is based on the source. We say that internally generated funds originate from the company's own operations and activities, but externally generated funds are originated from outside the company. Number 2, the second distinction is based on ownership. Internally generated funds do not dilute ownership control, whereas externally generated funds dilute ownership control. Point number 3 was based on the cost. We saw that the internally generated funds do not involve explicit costs, but externally generated funds come with explicit costs like interest payments and dividend payments. Number 4, fourth distinction is based on flexibility. Internally generated funds provide greater flexibility in decision making, but there are constraints when it comes to externally generated funds. Then lastly, the first point distinction is based on stability. Internally generated funds enhances financial stability, whereas the externally generated funds depend on market conditions. There is market dependency. Companies relying heavily on external financing may face challenges during economic downturns or in volatile markets, because such funds are subject to market conditions and investor sentiments. That is the end of today's lesson. Allow me to read 3 questions for your revision. 1. What are the advantages and disadvantages of relying on internally generated funds as a source of financing for enterprises? Number 2. How can enterprises effectively tap into externally generated funds, and what are the various external sources available to businesses for financing. 3. In what situations would a company prefer internal financing over external financing, and vice versa, considering the impact on business operations and financial stability? Thank you for attending the lesson. Bye. Hi everyone, and welcome to the financial management learning session. The subject or chapter is personal financial management. We've been studying this chapter. Today we come to the final subtopic, which is financial alterations. We've been studying each subtopic at a time, and at the end of every lesson, I've been giving you assignment. Today, our focus is on the last subtopic, which is financial alterations. Financial alterations in relation to personal financial management refers to the different adjustments or adaptations that may be required in personal financial management. We all know that personal financial management is a continuous process that requires adjustments and adaptations throughout the life of an individual. And that is especially true during significant life events like retirement, estate planning, and family budgeting. And those are the three areas we are going to study in our today's lesson. We will look at the financial alterations for retirement, financial alterations for estate planning and tax planning, and also alterations for family budgeting. Welcome to the lesson. Let's begin with the financial alterations for retirement. Financial alterations for retirement. Now, candidates, in personal financial management, it's important to plan for retirement, what we are referring to as retirement planning. As individuals, we should not live as if we won't retire. Retirement is inevitable. Retirement refers to a period when one may not be able to work. One may not have the strength to go to work or do the normal things that we do in life. That is a time when the body becomes weak, the body slows down, the mind becomes also weak in processing information and all that. So it's important, while one has the strength, while one has the money to plan for that stage in life, develop a comprehensive retirement plan that includes your desired retirement age, income sources, expenses, healthcare needs, and so on. Do you understand? In personal financial management, there are certain alterations that may be required. One is in relation to retirement planning. One has to have a comprehensive retirement plan that includes desired retirement age. Within this plan, there has to be desired retirement age. At what age do you plan or desire to retire? Is it at 40? Is it at 50 years? Is it when you are 60 years? That has to be done when you are still young, when you are 20 years, 21 years. What is your desired retirement age? What will be your income sources? when you hit 70, when you hit 80, what will be your income sources? That has to be predetermined when you haven't reached the retirement age yet. Income sources. Will you be having maybe sources from rent, real estate, or what sources you have to include? Expenses. What will be the desired expenses? When in retirement, what expenses are you likely to incur in retirement? How about healthcare needs? Healthcare needs. When one is young, one may not have much in terms of spending on health because the body is active, the body is healthy. But as we age, the body's immune system becomes weak. So it's important to plan how you are going to meet your healthcare needs while you are still young. So these are some of the alterations as far as retirement planning is concerned. Do you understand? Number 2, savings and investment. Savings and investments. Savings and investments. Savings and investments. It's important to maximize contributions to retirement schemes or accounts. When you are young, you need to have some savings. When you are young, you need to invest in long-term investments that will generate returns in the long run. Do you understand? Savings and investments. Savings and maximize contributions to retirement accounts so as to accumulate sufficient savings for your golden years. Personal financial management. Save for your retirement. Invest for your retirement. You can only invest if you save. So save, then invest, so that during your golden years, your life is easy, or your life is as desired. Number 3, debt management. It's important for individuals, as an individual, to pay off or manage debt before retirement to avoid financial burdens in your later years. Plan to clear your debts before retirement. These are alterations that are required in financial management, personal financial management, debt management. Manage your debts, pay off all debts so that there is no strain, there is no burden in retirement. 4, social security plans. Social security and plans or pensions. Before getting into retirement, it's important to understand your eligibility and benefits from social security and any other employer-sponsored pension plans. Understand that in advance. 5, healthcare planning. One ought to consider potential healthcare costs in retirement and research Medicare and other insurance options. Because one of the thorny issues in retirement is the health of an individual. So it's important, critical to plan for for one's health, what we are calling here healthcare planning. Healthcare. Consider potential healthcare costs that one may incur in retirement and research for Medicare and other insurance options. 6, downsizing. Downsizing. It may be relevant or necessary to evaluate the need to downsize one's home or living arrangements to reduce expenses. Downsize. Make sure you have enough people in a home which you can easily manage, which you can easily afford to take care of. So these are some of the points of financial alterations in retirement. How about estate and tax planning? 2. Estate and tax. Estate planning and tax planning. What are some of the financial alterations required in estate planning? In estate planning, one may need to create a will or trust to distribute one's assets after death according to one's wishes or according to one's desires or will. That's estate planning. Have a will in place to help distribute assets after death. 2. Tax planning. Financial alterations in tax planning, one has to minimize the tax burden through legal strategies like maximizing deductions, like maximizing on credits, and utilizing tax advantaged accounts. Tax planning is a legal way in which individuals or institutions can use to minimize tax liability. 3. Beneficiary designation. One may need to designate beneficiaries for retirement accounts like insurance policies and other assets to ensure that one's wishes are followed after death. Beneficiary designation. 4. Power of attorney. Power of attorney. An attorney to handle your financial affairs if one may become incapacitated. Because during old age, we talked about alterations, one may lose memory and you may not be able to make financial decisions. So it's at that point when one may consider well in advance to appoint an attorney who can handle one's financial affairs during such a trying moment or period. All right. So these are points to support estate and tax planning. Then number 3, family budgeting. Family budgeting. One area is creating a budget. Create a family budget. Creating a family budget. Develop a family budget that include all incomes, that include all expenses, in order to track finances and identify areas for savings. You may also need to have a financial plan, family financial plan. Financial plan, one ought to establish specific financial goals as a family, such as saving for a down payment on a house or saving on child's education and so on. And while developing a family budget, is important to involve everyone in the family. Encourage family members to participate in creating and managing a budget in order to promote financial responsibility. And it is on the basis of such a budget that tracking is possible. You track spending, track spending. This means regularly monitoring spending to identify areas where you can cut back and allocate resources more effectively. Financial education. Number 5. Financial education. In personal financial management is also necessary to educate family members, including the children, about personal finances and responsible money management. Financial education. Then lastly, we have emergency fund. Emergency fund. We've talked quite a lot on emergency fund in our lessons on personal financial management. We've seen why in our previous lessons it's critical to build a family emergency fund in order to cover unexpected expenses and financial hardships. We mentioned that if possible, set aside money in this fund that can enable the family to continue with the normal way of life, standard of living, even when incomes are not forthcoming. Have an emergency fund that can sustain the family for 1 year, 2 years, and so on. And candidates, by proactively managing these financial alterations, you can ensure a smooth transition to retirement. You can protect your assets. You can protect your loved ones through estate planning, through family budgeting, and you can also foster financial responsibility within the family. So these are some of the financial alterations in personal financial management. We've discussed points on retirement. We've discussed points on estate planning and tax planning and family budgeting. That effectively brings the lesson to an end. I'll read you today's assignment. Question number 1. How can individuals effectively plan for their retirement, considering factors such as savings, investment strategies, and potential lifestyle changes? Number 2, what roles does estate planning play in ensuring the smooth transfer of assets to heirs, and what key considerations should individuals keep in mind when creating an estate plan? Number 3, how does tax planning contribute to an individual's overall financial strategy, and what tax efficient strategies can individuals implement to optimize their financial situation? 4, in the context of family budgeting, what are some of the practical tips for creating and maintaining a budget that accommodates both short-term financial goals and long-term financial well-being? Now, I would want to encourage you to get a copy of the Financial Management Revision Partner, which compiles KASNEB past paper questions and solutions. Ensure that at the end of every lesson like this, at the end of every chapter, the way you have finished this chapter, go to the book. The book is topically arranged. We've arranged all past paper questions topically up to the most recent KASNEB sitting. At the end of every chapter, make sure you carry out a revision. Answer the questions that are provided in the book. This arrangement, topical arrangement, makes it easier for you to revise. The answers are provided at the back of the book. Before looking at the answers, ensure that you attempt the questions on your own first, so that you can take advantage of the benefits that one may enjoy as a result of active recall. Active recall is an efficient way or method or technique that individuals have used is a technique that psychologists have recommended in studying in order to retain information in your memory. I hope to meet you in our next session where we begin on a new topic. For now, bye-bye. Greetings and welcome back to the lesson. The subject is public sector governance, policy and administration. We are still on topic number 3. The lesson is public policy formulation processes. In this lesson, we are going to study the public policy formulation process. We will highlight the stages involved in the policy formulation process. We also study or highlight the actors in this process and their roles. So, candidates, the formulation of public policy involves a complex and often an iterative process that involves a range of actors and stakeholders. So it's a complex process that involves many actors, and the process begins with agenda setting. Agenda setting, these are the steps in this process. Step number 1, agenda setting. Setting of the agenda. The first stage of the policy formulation process involves, first of all, identifying and defining the problem or defining the issue that the policy is intended to address. There can be no policy without a problem. Policies are put in place to address specific problems. So policies are driven by problems. That is what to say that policies are driven by problems. So there has to be, first of all, the definition of the problem, the definition of the issue that calls for formulation of policy. And that may involve analyzing data, conducting research, consulting the stakeholders, and engaging with the public to determine which issues should be given priority. So agenda setting involves defining the problem. And how do you define problem? You talk to the people who are affected by the problem, because people may have many problems. But out of the many problems, which one should be addressed first? Which one needs policy? So the policymakers ought to analyze data. They may be required to conduct research. They may be required to consult with the members of the public and the interest groups. Agenda setting. Number 1. Number 2 is policy analysis. Policy analysis. Policy analysis. Analysis of policy. Now, once a problem or issue has been identified, then the policymakers engage in policy analysis in order to develop and evaluate what we call potential policy options. Because candidates, a single problem may have many alternative solutions. So there has to be the analysis of these potential policy options. This may involve considering various policy instruments. You recall previously we talked about policy instruments, which are tools that the government may use to address problems in the society or community, like laws, programs, resource allocation, and all that. Those are policy instruments. All right? So the second step is to analyze policy, the potential policy options. And that may involve considering various policy instruments, examining the costs vis-a-vis the benefits of different options, and also assessing the political, feasibility of different approaches. Policy analysis. I repeat, a problem may have different solutions. One problem may call for different policy options. There could be many alternatives to solve a problem. So before the government settles on the policy to formulate, it has to carry out policy analysis, which is the analysis of the potential policy options. I've explained how that is done. Then the third step is policy formulation. Formulation is derived from the word form, to create, to develop. Policy formulation. So, candidates, policy formulation is based on policy analysis. It's based on the results of policy analysis. So based on the results of policy analysis, the policymakers develop and refine specific policy proposals. Because here the government deals with different policy proposals or options. So here, when in formulating policy, then it may be need to refine, it may have various options which can be refined into one proposal. Just at this stage, the policymakers draft. At this point, the policymakers draft what we call policy language. They develop policy language. And they do so by consulting with the stakeholders and seeking input from experts, seeking input from different policymakers, and so on. So are you following, candidates, the procedure? Number one, define the problem. Set the agenda, policy agenda. All right? Analyze data, conduct research, consult with stakeholders to find out what is the problem. Define the problem or define the issue that the policy is intended to address. Then come up with proposals on how to address the problem. Policy analysis. Proposals on how the problem can be addressed. Then formulate policy. Out of the analysis that is done here, come up with, formulate the policy. And how do you formulate policy? You formulate policy based on the results of policy analysis. Develop and refine specific policy proposals. And that may involve, I've said, drafting policy language. Right? 4, here the policy has been formulated. You have put it in words, written down these words to it. You've drafted the language. Then step number 4 is to adopt. Policy adoption. Once a policy proposal has been developed or formulated in step number 3, then you adopt it. It must be adopted by the relevant policymakers or the relevant policy-making bodies or body. And that may involve a range of procedures, a range of political considerations. It may include legislative approval, it may include executive action, it may include bureaucratic decision making, depending on the policy. There are some policies, before they are adopted, they may need to have cabinet approval or legislative approval, and so on, depending on the policy that what has been developed in step number 3. Then it's adopted through various ways, like bureaucratic decision making, depending on what the law says as far as the development and adoption of that policy is concerned. Then step number 5, implementation. You implement it after it has been adopted, maybe by, we say through legislative, we gave a legislative approval, executive approval, bureaucratic decision making, and so on. After it has been adopted, then implement it. After it has been adopted, it must be implemented in a way that achieves its intended objective. The purpose for adopting or developing a policy is so that it can address a problem that was raised in step number 1. When it comes to implementation, then that policy has to be implemented in a way that solves the problem that was intended to solve. It must be implemented in a way that achieves its intended objectives or goals. And that implementation may involve developing regulations, creating programs. It may involve allocating resources. It may involve coordination among multiple actors, among different agencies of government, and so on. Implement the policy according to the original plan to solve the problem that necessitated the need for formulation of that policy. You can guess number 6, evaluation, policy evaluation, evaluation of policy. Now, candidates, here under evaluation, policymakers must evaluate the effectiveness of policy in achieving its objectives and goals. Policymakers must do what? Must evaluate the effectiveness of the policy in achieving its goals. And that may involve monitoring. It may do what? May involve monitoring. Because after implementing, then you monitor, you observe, you assess outcomes. Assess the outcomes, monitor the implementation process. It may involve measuring program performance, if it is a program. It may also involve, after doing the evaluation, making adjustments or revisions to the policy as needed. You understand? To monitor if the policy required the distribution of resources in order to solve a problem, then the government has to put in place a mechanism to evaluate if the program is effective by monitoring, by assessing outcomes, and also ensuring that if there are any adjustments that are needed, then that is done, because that's the purpose of evaluating, because there are some areas that may not be implemented according to the plan, or there could be unforeseen circumstances which may call for adjustments in the policy that has been formulated and implemented. So currently, these are 6 important steps in public policy formulation. 1, agenda setting. Agenda what? Agenda setting. 2, policy analysis. 3, policy formulation. 4, policy adoption. 5, policy implementation. 6, policy evaluation. These are key public policy formulation stages or steps. Is that clear, candidates? And it's important to note that the formulation process is not always linear or sequential, as I have explained. It's not always. Because remember, we say that this process may be iterative. We say it's complex and an iterative process. It may need to back and forth. It's not linear. It's not always after beginning, because it may happen candidates that at the adoption, for example, at the adoption stage, there may be need to redefine the problem. The problem may not have been defined very well. So they may need to go back to definition of the problem even at the implementation stage. While implementing after adoption, they may be need to make adjustments to the definition of the problem. So it is not given that the process is linear or sequential. Policymakers may need to revisit earlier stages of the process as new information or as new insights emerge. There could be some information that was not available to policymakers during the policy analysis. So if new information emerges during evaluation, then there will be adjustments that are made to the policy. Additionally, candidates, the policy formulation process may involve competing interests, especially when dealing with government resources. There could be conflicting values, conflicting interests. There could be trade-offs between different policy objectives. So it may not be a sequential or easy or linear process. And therefore, effective policy formulation requires careful consideration of all these factors: the competing interests, the conflicting values, the trade-offs. All these factors must be put into consideration, as well as ongoing engagement with stakeholders, because stakeholders, again, are subject to change, may change their values, their needs may change. The people to whom the policy is intended to help, to maybe the problems that are intended to be solved, it may change. So there's need to always have an engagement, ongoing engagement with all the actors. And that takes us to the second part, as I've just mentioned, actors, because I've said for this process to be successful, the policymakers may need to have an ongoing, continuous engagement with the actors. So let us now discuss the actors in the policy formulation process. Who are the actors and what are their roles? Because we have a range of actors and stakeholders involved in public policy formulation, each with their own roles, each with their own responsibilities. Who are these actors? And what is their role? One, politicians and policymakers. Politicians are the elected leaders. Politicians are the elected or the appointed officials who are responsible for making decisions about public policy. They are typically responsible for setting the policy agenda, conducting policy analysis, developing and refining policy proposals, overseeing the adoption and implementation of policies. So the policymakers and politicians, they are key actors in the public policy formulation process. I've highlighted their role. Their role, key role, is that they're responsible for setting the policy agenda. They may be involved in also policy analysis. We talked about development of different proposals to address the problem. They may also oversee the adoption and implementation of the policies. Adoption, here, remember we talked about legislative approval. Those who sit in parliament are politicians. The legislature is a political arm, okay, of government, and they are involved at the adoption. They may be needed to approve a policy that has been developed or formulated. So that is the role of the policymakers and politicians. Do you understand, candidates? Yeah, of course, yes, you do. Number 2, bureaucrats and civil servants. Bureaucrats and civil servants. These are government officials who are responsible for carrying out the day-to-day work of developing and implementing public policies. They may be responsible for drafting regulations, for managing programs, for allocating resources, and also coordinating with each other, and also coordinating with the different stakeholders. Bureaucrats are government officials. These are not politicians, but government officials. Civil servants. They play a key role in policy formulation process. They are responsible for carrying out the day-to-day work of developing and also implementing public policy. The third actor is interest groups. Interest groups and advocacy organizations. Interest groups and advocacy organizations. These are organizations that represent specific interests or constituencies. And these are groups that seek to influence public policy. They may engage in activities such as lobbying, public education, grassroots organization. The purpose for involving in public organization is so as to advance their public policy priorities. Interest groups and advocacy organizations. We may also have experts and academics. Experts and academics. These are individuals with specialized knowledge and expertise in specific policy areas such as economics. We may have experts in public health, economics in environmental science, and such like. They may be called upon to provide input. They may be called upon to provide analysis to policymakers during the policy formulation process, particularly at the policy analysis stage. They may also be required to help in drafting the policy language. They are useful at even implementation